everybody, and welcome to VFX Mage, where today we are going to be talking about my top 10 moments of Phase 1. Thank you guys for joining. If this is the first time that you are seeing some of my videos, this is something new that I am not used to doing live, but we'll see how it goes, and feel free to comment and like. So, coming in at number 10 is the death of Bucky. So the death of Bucky is a crucial part in the MCU, and especially Phase 1, because it shapes Captain America's perspective. You know, it's the first time he loses and sees the dangers of war and understands the sacrifice that superheroes have to make. Now, as well as when it comes to the death of Bucky, even though he comes back, without this tragedy in Phase 1, we don't get the same Winter Soldier that we would otherwise get in Captain America 2, where it comes to Phase 2, and as well as in Phase 4, where we have Civil War. I don't think that it would have ended the way that Civil War ends, Bucky being the Winter Soldier. Bucky being, of course, the one, by the way, spoiler warnings, being the one who kills Tony Stark's parentage. So without Tony's parents dying from Bucky and then Captain America defending him, I generally do not think that Cap and Tony would have stayed in odds. I think they would have repaired, come together, and have been a team by the time Infinity War comes into mind, and therefore Endgame. So that's why I do believe that Bucky's death or disappearance is very important to the MCU, and why it is on my top 10 list. Now going down to number 9. So number 9 is the parentage of, it is the parentage of Loki. So at my number 9 spot is Loki finding out that he is a frost giant. Now this is important because it is a crucial betrayal for Loki, catapulting him into true villain status. In one mind, he is just a mischievous little brother that's kind of trying to mess with his older brother and have fun. And I mean, it does destroy a village in Thor 1, but he holds restraint. Finding out that he's a frost giant really changes his perspective and makes him go after Midgard, which is of course Earth, and it makes him go after what Thor loves, to hurt him and to hurt Odin for lying to him his whole life. This also catapults him to require more assistance, so he reaches out to Thanos, and the attack on New York, where Avengers kind of unite, happens because Loki is angry and mad at this realization that he is not Asgardian by blood, and really was a failed experiment in its totalness. And I don't think if he would have attacked New York in the MCU, that Tony would have been as protective, and maybe he wouldn't have created Ultron. So definitely, I think, a pivotal moment in the MCU. Coming in at number 8 is, I think, one of the most beautiful scenes ever, which is Thor being unworthy. So when I mean Thor is unworthy, it is the scene in Thor 1 in which he tries to grab the hammer and is not able to. I think this is a very important scene for multiple reasons. One, Hawkeye debuts for the first time in the MCU, and you see a kind of support system between those two. And you see that Thor gets humbled, and I think that without this humbleness, he would not have been able to be on a team with people like Iron Man and Hawkeye and Black Widow, and even Captain America, right? Like, he still in Avengers thinks he's much better than them without with this humbleness. Without that humbleness, he would have been far worse, and I don't think he would have ended up as an Avenger and had so much respect for different types of heroes. Coming in at number 7 is the suit up for Natasha Romanoff. So the first time we see Black Widow in all her glory. Now the reason that this one is my top 7 instead of 8 is because this is the first time in the entire MCU that we see 2 Avengers, more than one Avenger in a movie. And I think that in itself is kind of a level above the scene that we just talked about for 8. So due to that is one of the biggest reasons that I agree and really like that scenario. It also shows her strength, her skill, and definitely foreshadows how much of an asset she would be to the Avengers. And it's also now in looking back, since it's been 10 years and we know the ending of Black Widow and her sacrifice that she does, it makes this moment more awestruck and definitely one that we can look back on with more appreciation. Now at number 6 is a quick second, blink if you miss it moment in Thor 1 where the gauntlet to Thanos comes out. Now I have mixed feelings about this one because in this case it kind of messes up the lore further down the road because the dwarf giant mentions that he only makes the gauntlet for Thanos. So like, why is the gauntlet in Odin's chamber, like in his safe? It just kind of doesn't make sense. And how does Thanos get it? And you can even say like Loki gets it for him, and that's a possibility, but it never gets really established. It's literally just an Easter egg for the fans to know that this, from the very beginning, we are climbing and going towards the Infinity Gauntlet. So it's just an Easter egg for us, the fans, but it is an important tether that goes to the span of 10 years. So it's just to show people, like, we've been thinking of the movies, maybe not as detailed, but we know kind of where we're going from here into the future. And it's really a nice homage to kind of all the foreshadowing that comes in phase 1 that gets manifested later on in the series or in the universe of the MCU. Now we have Hulk Smash at number 5. Hulk smashes Loki, to be specific. I love Loki, I love Hulk, and I love this moment. It definitely brings the iconic God of Mischief down to a different level, to the point where in Thor Ragnarok he is scared out of his mind the moment he sees Hulk is in the same planet that he is. He wants to run, he wants to get out. Like, before that moment he's really cocky, and after that moment he's like scared. It's because he has seen the power of the Hulk and understands that even though he may be an Asgardian god or a blue giant or whatever you want to categorize him, he is no match for Hulk. And in this moment is the moment that Loki realizes that. And I think it is to help in the coming of his arc into the whole idea of him possibly helping out Thor against Thanos. In having an enemy that isn't related to him, is technically not at the level of a god, easily able to beat him senseless. And thematically, shot-wise, it is a beautiful, beautiful shot. I love it. Okay. Coming in at number 4 is to kind of add to that is the Tony and Loki talk. Now, why I like this conversation of Tony and Loki speaking in Avengers Tower, is because Tony says something very, very important to Loki. He says, if we cannot beat you, we will avenge you. Like, we will avenge our failure. And that's exactly what they end up doing in Infinity War and Endgame. They lose. They completely lose in Infinity War, but that doesn't stop them. They avenge the loss of the comrades. They avenge the loss of half the universe. They make it right by killing Thanos in the beginning of Endgame. Then they go further by making it right by bringing back everyone that they lost. And there is really a beauty to that. And that is all foreshadowed in Avengers 1 with the talk of Loki. It also has where Loki's like, I have a whole army, I'm like super powerful, and Tony's like, well, we have a Hulk. And that is echoed in one of Loki's last lines in Infinity War, where he tells Thanos, we have a Hulk, referencing this same moment in Phase 1, as well as showing the appreciation that Hulk is true power. But it also kind of, that moment in itself in Infinity War is showing us the power of Thanos. But it all starts with this foreshadowing within Phase 1. Now, for my number 3 spot is the Tony Stark suiting up. Now, the reason that I really like this scene is specifically because this is the first ever superhero that we get to see suit up. We get to see him in his awestruck glory. We get to have kind of this sense of what is to come. And it is the first time in the cinematic world that we get a Marvel superhero within the MCU that will continue on, and we will see comic to screen adaptations of, and it's seeing your childhood hero in his full glory for the first time ever is why I think Iron Man 1's full first suit up of Iron Man is my top 3 pick for these moments of the MCU. For pick number 2, we have the iconic argument of Captain America and Tony Stark in Avengers. They are in the helicarrier of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they are talking to each other and kind of yelling at each other. One of the most important things about this is that they say 2 things that they end up proving wrong further down the line. So what they end up saying is, Tony Stark says to Captain America, you're not special, you're a lab experiment. Everything special about you happens to have come from, a lab experiment. Like, your superhuman powers are the only thing that's special about you. And he proves that wrong by Endgame when he is worthy to hold Mjolnir. He is able to have the power of Thor because of his character, because of who he is as a person. It has nothing to do with his superpower abilities, which I think is a great homage to this one argument in Phase 1 all the way from Phase 1. As well as Steve Rogers tells Tony that he is not the hero to sacrifice everything for the betterment of mankind and the betterment of everybody else. He's not a hero, as Steve says. And not only does Tony prove that wrong in Avengers 1, where he tries to sacrifice himself to get rid of the atom bomb, but then is able to escape that fate. But he proves it ultimately and finally at the end of Endgame, where he does snap the fingers, knowing that it will lead to his death, but to save millions, to save half the universe. He makes that sacrifice. There is no alternative, there is no other option, and he does do the final sacrifice, proving Steve Rogers wrong. So this echoing of this argument echoes all the way to the last moments of Endgame, where the closure of these two characters' arc ends as of today. And I think that's what makes this one of the most special. Now, I would normally put that at number 1, but our number 1 spot, y'all should know it, y'all would know it. It is the Avengers Assemble for the first time in Avengers. And why it's my number 1 spot is because those 6 are the 6 that will end up creating the savior moment of going back in time and saving and correcting the Infinity Gauntlet and saving half the universe. This team, strong individually, but an epic heroism together as a team, and this is the first time we see our 6 main characters that we are to follow for the next decade together, fighting as one. And it is to this day still a jaw-dropping moment. So now that you got my 10 picks for my favorite moments of Phase 1, let me know what you guys think. I'm going to try to do a live short every month, doing the top phases of the MCU for the next at least 4 phases that we are currently at. So let me know what you guys think, or should I go live regularly instead of in shorts? Please let me know. Alright, see you guys next time, and thank you for listening.